Right, well, welcome everyone. Members of the public are advised that the meeting will be live streamed and recorded, and the live stream recording will be made publicly available on YouTube and Council's website. Tonight's Council meeting is being held in a hybrid format, with the Councillor attending virtually in accordance with Part 5 of the Governance Rule meeting procedures. Council adopted its new Governance Rule meeting procedures on the 25th of July 2023, which allows for virtual and hybrid meetings to occur. This is the first time we're doing a hybrid meeting with our new equipment in the chamber, so please excuse us if there are any hiccups, but I'm assured it's very good equipment at very high quality, and so hopefully we'll have a nice, smooth meeting. And so Councillor Eyre is with us by Zoom tonight. Nillumbik Shire Council respectfully acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people as the traditional owners of the country on which Nillumbik is located, and we value the significance of the Wurundjeri people's history as essential to the unique character of the Shire. We pay tribute to all First Nations people living in Nillumbik, give respect to elders past, present and future, and extend that respect to all First Nations people. We respect the enduring strength of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and acknowledge the ongoing impacts of past trauma and injustices from colonial invasion, massacres and genocide committed against First Nations people. We acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people hold a deep and ongoing connection to this place. We value the distinctive place of our First Nations people in both Nillumbik and Australia's identity, from their cultural heritage and care of the land and waterways, to their ongoing contributions in many fields, including academia, agriculture, art, economics, law, sport and politics. And now Councillor Payne will read out the Good Governance Pledge.
As councillors, we are mindful of our civic responsibilities and obligations. We pledge to take them seriously and to carry them out with diligence and integrity. We know the decisions we make will affect the people and environment of Nillumbik now and in the future. We undertake, therefore, to make sound and principled decisions of lasting value in a spirit of fairness and for the good of all. We also pledge to serve the needs and well-being of the community and the environment in an open and honest manner and to the best of our abilities.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. The next item is the prayer, and we have a prayer tonight from Pastor Mel Abrasaldo, who's been the senior pastor of Joy of Life Church for 12 years. Joy of Life Church is in Craigieburn, with members coming from various cultures, backgrounds and nationalities, united by their faith and love for Jesus Christ as Saviour and Lord. Joy of Life Church is a member of Australian Christian Churches. The church is committed to helping people build Christ-centred lives, strong and healthy relationships individually and with the family unit by conducting Bible-based Christian education through Sunday school and care group meetings, helping couples build and foster a healthy and strong marriage through the marriage course, together with men and women's fellowship groups, helping young people find their value and discover their full potential, gifts and talents to fulfill their God-given purpose and become world changers in the future. Joy of Life Church also partners with local charity groups to support the local needs and is actively involved in community-based activities, festivities such as Filipino Fiesta and Wandong Christmas carols, and feeding the local homeless people. So thank you, Pastor Mel.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, and thank you for having me tonight to say a prayer. So let's pray. Most gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for this time. Thank you for the privilege to come into your throne of grace, that we might bring forth our requests and petitions for the community of Nillumbik Council and its people. I thank you for the councillors who are here from whom you have called and appointed to serve for the growth and well-being of the community. In Proverbs chapter 3, 5-6, it says, "A wise king Solomon once said, 'Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths.'" Father, tonight we humbly come before you to acknowledge you and seek your face. I pray for wisdom and discernment be upon all the leaders of the community in making critical decisions that impact the lives of countless individuals. May they seek God's guidance in every choice they make, big or small. Lord, grant each one of the humility to recognize that they serve not for personal gain, but for the well-being of their community. May they exemplify the spirit of servant leadership in all they do. I pray that they may uphold the high standards of integrity and honesty in their roles. Lord, let their actions reflect their commitment to truth and righteousness. In a world filled with uncertainties and dangers, we seek God to protect all leaders from harm, both physical and spiritual. May they be shielded from harm's way as they carry out their duties. Lord, I pray for unity among council members, that they may work together harmoniously for the common good. Let divisive agendas be set aside in favor of cooperation and collaboration. May every member possess compassionate heart, empathizing with the struggles and challenges faced by their people. Lord, I pray that they soften their hearts to the needs of the marginalized and the vulnerable. In these turbulent economic times, I pray for the ability to make sound fiscal decisions that lead to stability and prosperity for the Nillumbik community. Lord, I implore you to also guide them in upholding justice and fairness in their policies and decisions. Let righteousness prevail over injustice and inequality. I pray that you give them the passion to champion family values and support policies that strengthen the bonds of love and commitment within families. And lastly, I pray for all the council members and leaders' steadfastness and clarity of mind in times of crisis. May they turn to God for guidance and find strength in their faith. May your blessing of protection, peace, unity, and prosperity be upon each one of the council members, their loved ones, and the whole community of Nillumbik, whom you have appointed them to serve. I give you back all glory, honor, and praise. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Mel. We have no apologies tonight, and so I'll ask for any declarations of conflict of interest from the councillors. Councillor Egan.
Yes, I have a conflict with item number, bear with me,
59.
59, that's it. Thank you.
And that's a material conflict of interest, Councillor Egan?
Yeah, pecuniary.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other conflicts of interest? Councillor Duffy.
I have a conflict of interest with item number 16, the notice of motion, councillor expenses, legal advice and support.
Thank you, Councillor
And
Duffy.
that is a material conflict where I could incur a loss or a gain.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. So councillors will be asked to restate their conflict of interest immediately before the relevant item. We do have some presentations tonight as well. We have a condolence for Sue Ann Penrose. We were deeply saddened to hear of the recent passing of long-time Nillumbik resident Sue Ann Penrose. Sue was a leader in paediatric nursing and paediatric pain management, an educator and a mentor to many. She retired from the Royal Children's Hospital after more than 3 decades last August, and she was also a very skilled artist. Sue was a member of the Green Wedge Protection Group and was passionate about preservation of the Green Wedge and all things environmental. She was a long-standing member of the original Friends of Panton Hill Bushland Reserves, who were fundamental in advocating to Council to purchase the reserves from Melbourne Water for conservation of their significant biodiversity values. Council took ownership of the reserves in 1998. Sue has been a member of Council's Panton Hill Bushland Reserve System User Group Advisory Committee since it was established in 2011. Sue was also a strong advocate for reconciliation. In 2016, on behalf of the Friends of Panton Hill Bushland Reserves, Sue was successful in obtaining a Catchment Management Authority grant to develop an Indigenous food, fibre and medicine garden at the entrance to Bunjil Reserve. This project was a partnership between the Friends Group, the Wurundjeri Council and Nillumbik Shire Council to rehabilitate 1.8 hectares of land at the entrance to Bunjil Reserve. The area was reinstated with traditional Indigenous food, fibre and medicine plants and developed for part of an interpretation trail. This project has been ongoing, and in 2023, Sue was involved in a working group to develop interpretive signage and educational material for the site. In 2017, the Friends of Panton Hill Bushland Reserve System, in partnership with Smith Gully Landcare and Nillumbik Shire Council, received a biodiversity on-ground action grant from the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, funding biodiversity protection actions over 2 years. Sue was instrumental in the success of that funding application, which was used to run the Cultivating Community Stewardship Project, an initiative that engaged the community in activities to help protect threatened plant and animal species in the Panton Hill Bushland Reserve System and surrounding private land. Sue also recently began volunteering at Edendale Community Environment Farm in the nursery following her retirement. On behalf of Nillumbik Shire Council, we pass on our condolences to Sue's husband, Bill, a former Eltham Shire councillor, former Nillumbik Shire Council mayor, and also to Sue's family and friends. We also have a King's Birthday honour, and so it was great yet again to see a member of the Nillumbik community being recognised for their achievements in the recent King's Birthday honours. And tonight I'd like to acknowledge Tuan Nguyen, who was awarded a Medal of the Order of Australia, OAM, in the General Division for service to the community through governance and advocacy roles. I would like to commend Tuan for their dedication, service and achievement of excellence in their field. They embody the Nillumbik ethos of service, diligence, commitment, and above all, serving the broader community. And so congratulations to Tuan. The next item is confirmation of minutes, and so I will look for a motion.
Thank you,
Councillor
Mayor.
Egan.
I'd like to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. As per the papers?
Yes, that council confirms the minutes of the council meeting held on Tuesday, the 28th of May, 24.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Duffy?
Thank you. Happy to second that.
Councillor Egan?
Nothing much to talk about. This is just merely operational. Thank you.
Councillor Duffy?
No, I won't add anything. Thank you.
Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. The next item is petitions, and we have received one petition, call for solidarity with Palestine. And so I will look for a motion. Councillor Duffy.
I'm happy to put that motion forward. Thank you. The recommendation is that council receives and notes, so the motion is that council receives and notes the Nillumbik Shire call for solidarity with Palestine petition relating to the ongoing conflict between Israel and Palestine in accordance with the governance rule meeting procedure, that we refer this petition to the Director of Governance, Communications and Community Safety for a response, and note that officers will advise the petition organiser of the outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Payne.
Happy to second.
Councillor Duffy.
I would like to say that receiving this petition creates a lot of emotion for a lot of people. There is a sense of horror with what's going on in the world at the moment and a sense of not being able to do anything. So I note the people that have been coming to council for the last couple of meetings and their attempts to be heard, the desire to have this conflict end. And I see terrible things happening on both sides of this war over in Gaza, but my heart goes out to the people of Palestine that really it seems at this stage that there is an I'm not quite sure if I'm saying the right words, but it just seems to be too much. And, you know, to look at what's happening on the TV screens and to see the complete destruction, to hear that there are 20,000 children or so who are just lost. You know, the people that are dying all the time, every day, is just horrifying that this can go on in our world. And at the same time, the things that happened to the Israelis back in October were horrific as well. So, you know, what this shows is we have a world that's broken. We have a world that needs humanity. We heard from Pastor Mel tonight about, you know, trying to live with humanity. And I'm hoping that by receiving this petition, for those people who have added their names to that petition, they can see that they're doing something in their powers to be able to try and help with a ceasefire. As a council, there is not a lot that Nillumbik can do to really affect change in what's happening in Palestine. But as individuals, we would just seek in our world, in our neighbourhoods, in our families, in our towns, in our countries and internationally, for people to be able to live with compassion and with empathy for others, and to remember that we're all human at the end of the day, and we all need to be able to live in this world and enjoy it. So I am happy to accept this petition and thank the organisers of the petition and the people who've put their name to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Payne? Any other councillors? I'll speak to this one briefly. And look, I'd just like to start by acknowledging the group that have come to council tonight for the second month running to protest what's going on in Gaza, and just to thank them for their presence and for their peaceful protest and some of the words that are being shared by their speakers outside. And I think we should all acknowledge that they are here with us tonight, and some of them are in the room. So thank you for being here. Look, what's going on in Gaza, in Palestine, in Israel, is horrific. There are people suffering in Gaza and in Israel. There are people from both sides suffering as a result of what some may call a conflict and some may call a genocide. But it is happening. And so that's what this petition's about. We're not making any decisions tonight. All we're doing is receiving the petition, and I trust that it will be with governance, and that we'll, in good time, receive a report on this, and so that council can move forwards and make a decision about how we proceed with this. If we do want to do anything, that will be up to council. Look, I am very sceptical personally about what difference council can possibly make, but I do acknowledge what the petitioners are putting forward, which is that they feel it's important to take a stand, and I think we hear that loud and clear. So thank you to the petitioners for organising this and for submitting it to us. We will give it due consideration, and I do think it is an incredibly important issue. So thank you. And I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. We have one question from the gallery, or one questioner, two questions. So we have a question from Mel Lay. And the first question: we are concerned that Nillumbik Council have wasted ratepayer funds to cover the cost of hiring security guards to police the Nillumbik for Palestine rally on the 28th of May. Yet the cost of siding with humanity is free. Can Council please explain if the budget utilised for the expense of hiring security guards was directly funded by Nillumbik ratepayers? And the response is, yes, it was funded by Council. It is Council's responsibility to ensure a safe environment for staff and community. Given that this was the first rally by the group, Council was unsure on what to expect and took a precautionary approach to ensure the conduct of our Council meeting was maintained. And the second question is, when will the Nillumbik ratepayers be notified of this expense? And the response is that the total cost to hire security, including GST, was $1,047. And that is all the questions that we have tonight. The next item is the reports of advisory committees. I will look for a motion. Councillor Payne.
Happy to move the motion that Council notes the minutes of the advisory committee meetings reported as per attachment 1.
Happy to.
Seconded Councillor Egan. Councillor Payne? Councillor Egan? Any other councillors? Councillor Duffy.
I do. I would just like to take a moment just to acknowledge the Economic Development Advisory Committee. The minutes of the last meeting are here in the report, in the agenda, and we had the last committee meeting for the committee who have served the last 2 years in this advisory committee. I'd just like to call them out. So Kirali Romaro, Chanmali Dragabi, Claire Knoll, Katrina Naish, Oriana Edmonds, George Apteb, Debbie Mariaz, I'm mispronouncing this, Mariaz, Craig Usher, Mira Goval, Nicole Stavely, Phil Marindez and Cameron Heap. These people have provided insights, guidance and suggestions to council in their time on the Economic Development Advisory Committee. And I'd just like to acknowledge their volunteerism and that the Economic Advisory Committee has gone out for new expressions of interest, and that's with council officers now, and they'll be going through the people that have put their hand up to provide this service to us again. So again, thank you to these people on the Economic Development Advisory Committee, but thank you to all of the people who provide their time and expertise to council in all our advisory committees.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The next item is the Audit and Risk Committee meeting for May 2024 and the Audit and Risk Committee Charter. And I will look for a motion.
Yes, I'd like to move that
Councillor Egan.
Council 1 notes the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 6th of May 24. 2 endorses the Audit and Risk Committee Charter, and 3 resolves to increase the independent members' remuneration by the Victorian Government rate cap set by the Minister for Local Government annually effective from 1st of September 24.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Perkins, Councillor Egan.
Yes, there's not really a lot to say. The minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee were self-evident. You'll see them in the agenda. I suppose the thing to talk about mainly is the charter, which has also been in there, and number 3, which is the rate cap set by the Minister for Local Government, which increases their small amount that they get paid for doing this. There is a lot of responsibility in the external auditors in this committee. They're the ones that oversee everything that we do in terms of risk and pecuniary interest. So they have to get it right, and usually they do, but it's all based on what our finance department does in the beginning, and I know they think quite highly of our finance department. So there's not much else to say about that, except that on both fronts they're doing a great job. So I think it's only fair and right that their small, meagre salary or allowance gets increased to the rate cap. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Perkins? Any other councillors? Councillor Duffy?
Thank you. I thank the Audit and Risk Committee for the important work that they do. And with the Charter, one of the things that's particularly of interest to me is point 7.1, where we talk about risk management. And the first point here is to review whether management has in place a current and comprehensive enterprise risk management framework and associated procedures for effective identification and management of council's business and financial risks. Within that, I'm assuming that that's also covering off psychosocial injuries, because psychosocial hazards are anything that could cause psychological harm or harm someone's mental health. And there are many common psychosocial hazards that happen at work. Bullying, harassment, poor organisational justice, lack of role clarity, poor support, and people standing on and watching when things are happening and not doing anything about it. So I'm hoping that here in our council that's not happening to officers, and I would like to have confidence that that won't happen to councillors going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. The next item is the Quarterly Risk and Safety Report for March 2024, and I'll look for a motion. Councillor Perkins.
Thank you. I move that Council notes the summary of the Confidential Risk and Safety Report, Attachment 1 for the quarter ending March 2024. 2 resolves that the attached Risk and Safety Report, Attachment 1, remains confidential in accordance with Section 3(1)(a) and F of the Local Government Act 2020.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Egan. Councillor Perkins?
Thank you. Look, not a long report, but just a couple of quick highlights is that incidents generally are now trending downwards as the data for incidents and claims generated in previous storm events in 2022 quarter have fallen away. Also interested to note that WorkSafe undertook an entry visit at the Civic Centre and Operations Centre in November 2023 as part of their proactive program to provide guidance and assess and enforce compliance with specific health and safety laws. I note that no adverse findings were noted. And injury data shows a decrease in mine injuries reported, and this is the second consecutive quarter with no new work cover claims. All good news. Strategic risks, 67% are complete or in place, 33% are on target, 0% are not on target, and 0% are not yet due to start. So also good news. So the report is there, councillors. There's also a confidential report that is not released to the public, and there's a bit more detail there that council has access to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Egan? Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. The next item is the Memorandum of Understanding for the Birrarung Valley Walk, and I'll look for a motion. Councillor Payne.
Happy to move the motion, Mayor Amtran, that Council notes the guiding principles of the Birrarung Valley Walk Memorandum of Understanding, the MOU, which includes formation of a steering committee comprising all signatories to the MOU, and that all aspects of the project would be subject to steering committee approval in consultation with traditional custodians as per Attachment 1, and 2, approves the CEO to sign the Memorandum of Understanding at Attachment 2.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Duffy. Councillor Payne.
Yes, this is a terrific initiative, thanks to the Birrarung Valley Walk Incorporated Association, linking existing walking tracks and paths from the mouth of the Birrarung, that's the Yarra River, to the Upper Yarra Reservoir. That's over 220 kilometres. And it's there for the purpose of protecting and enhancing and promoting the natural environment and First Nations culture of the Birrarung Valley. It's a whole-of-river project, and the guiding principles are that the walk is to be on public land and that each section of the trail is to be agreed with the relevant landowners. And in this case, we are one of at least 15 different public entities, responsible public entities, to enter into the Memorandum of Understanding. When this is complete, this would basically be an over 200-kilometre multi-day continuous walk. If you start at the mouth of the Birrarung or the Yarra River, you would end up in the mountains behind Warburton, and it would be an extraordinary kind of trail to be on. I should point out that most of the tracks will not be in Nillumbik itself. It's on the southern side of the Yarra River, but there will be a portion in and near Sugarloaf Reservoir. And there's no intention to entertain any other travellers along there other than pedestrians, no bikes or horses. So I think it's a wonderful initiative, and I commend good luck to the whole enterprise.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Duffy?
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to agree with Councillor Payne. I think that this is a fabulous project. I was very excited when I was first told about it by Eugene Howard, and I'd just like to congratulate the team putting it together. They've worked very hard. They've done a lot of work with this, and I'd just like to give a shout out to the Executive Director Nicola Lefroy, who is leading the charge with this. So congratulations. I love the project, and particularly how closely they're working with the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung. And for those who do come from the city to walk along the trail, they'll get a great chance to be able to look at the river if they step across over onto the bridge that's there at Eltham Lower Park. With that, that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. You saw my hand. I've put it up a few times.
My apologies.
No, that's okay. We're just trying to get the technology sorted at this back end as well. So as you mentioned, it's the first time, so it's all good. I can see everything clearly, which is good, and that's my three minutes. I've lost half of that. So I'm just really pleased about this program as well, and I just concur to what Councillor Payne and Councillor Duffy said. It'll be amazing when it's completed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? I'll speak to that one briefly as well. Look, I'm really pleased to support this motion too. We received a briefing from the people behind the Birrarung Valley Walk, and I was really impressed. This is something that's fallen out of some of the objectives in the Yarra Strategic Plan, and so it actually aligns with the direction that we want to take for our precious river. So that's the first thing. But also, I was incredibly impressed at how thoroughly well thought out and thoroughly researched it is already, even though it's in such early stages and it's still a high-level project and there's still a very long way to go to plan this out and bring it to fruition. I was incredibly impressed at the amount of work that's already gone in to understanding land tenures and understanding the significance of certain land where the trail may go. The group, one of the questions I had for the group when we met with them was actually answered before I could even ask it, which was to confirm that they weren't planning to put the walk through high significance areas such as Bend of Islands. And before I could even answer the question, they'd answered it and said that they wouldn't. And so I think that just shows how well thought out this already is, and it means it's certainly something that I'd be happy to support, because these trails are they will go through places where trails ought to be, and the group are avoiding areas like Bend of Islands where trails ought not be. A lot of the trails actually already exist, and it's about mapping them out and connecting them. There will be some areas, I believe, that need to be open to the public, but yes, most of the areas in this walk are already there, and it's just about giving people access to them and letting people know that they're there so that more people can enjoy our incredibly precious Yarra River. And so with that, I will put this one to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The next item is the Bouchers Road Special Charge Scheme. Councillor Egan.
Yes, as I have a conflict of interest, which is pecuniary, I'll be leaving the room.
Thank you, Councillor Egan.
Just don't forget to get me back.
I won't adjust your chair like you adjusted mine last week. All right. Thank you, everyone. Well, I will look for a motion. Councillor Perkins.
I move the officer recommendation, which is that Council 1 gives public notice of its intention to declare a special charge scheme in accordance with Section 163(1)(a) of the Local Government Act 1989 for the purposes of defraying the expenses to be incurred by Council for the sealing of Bouchers Road, subject to the following conditions. A, the special charge scheme shall apply to the 12 properties at 15, 20, 35, 40, 60, 80, 85, 95, 100, 105, 110, which is Crown Land, and 120, Council's Reserve, Bouchers Road, Kangaroo Ground, refer attachment 1. The total estimated cost to each property may be paid as a lump sum within 30 days of invoice or by quarterly instalments over a 10-year period, with the interest as provided by Section 163(1)(b) of the Local Government Act 1989. The special charge scheme for Bouchers Road, Kangaroo Ground shall remain in force for 10 years, and the estimated total project cost is $430,000, and the amount levied between the 10 private properties is $372,747.85. The estimated council contribution for the remaining 2 properties is $57,252.15 as per attachment 2. And 2, council sends a copy of the public notice to each person who will be liable to pay the special charge.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. I'll look for a seconder. Oh, Councillor Stockman. Councillor Perkins.
So this process has been in play for a long, long time. Council first received a petition on the 25th of October 2019. That was over 4.5 years ago, so certainly this has been in play for, I'd say greater than 5 years, given that it would have taken a bit of time even for residents to get together, discuss it and get a petition up. Since then, there's been 2 formal surveys, 10 properties. Council owns 2 of the properties or controls 2 of the properties, so Council doesn't vote in the matter in terms of being a landowner. So of the 12 properties, there are only 10 that got the opportunity to vote on whether or not the scheme should proceed. So there were 10 properties. Initially, it was 70% support. The initial questionnaire indicated 70% or 7 of the 10 properties were in favour. March 2021, it came down to 6 in favour and 4 against, so 60%, which is the threshold as per the policy for council to declare the scheme. There was certainly a task group formed, multiple meetings between 2022 and July of 2023 to develop the proposed design. There was a final information session on the 28th of February 24, and property owners representing 8 properties involved in the scheme were present, I understand. So the final vote from the residents were again unchanged, 6-4, 60% in favour, 40% against. Our policy is quite clear. This isn't, if this motion gets up, it's an intention to declare. It really commences the statutory process to declare the scheme and levy the special charge. Council has to give notice of its intention to declare for a special charge scheme and subsequently hear any submissions and or objections to the scheme. So following this, Council may resolve to declare, vary or abandon the scheme. So, you know, basically from the time that people receive the notification, I understand they have about 28 days to object or to write in support. Council will then consider that at a PCC or a council meeting, and finally, as I said, dissolve to declare, vary or abandon the scheme. But at this stage, our policy is quite clear. It's a council adopted policy. This council, it's been in play for many, many years. This council hasn't really sought to vary it at all, or with certainly the parameters under which we're looking at it. And the trigger is 60% support. The scheme does have 60% support. If council votes this down and chooses to abandon, the advice is it would be liable to a VCAT appeal because council would not be following its own policy, and it ultimately wouldn't end well. So I know that there are four properties that don't want the special rate scheme. That's not at all unusual. That's quite typical. And it, you know, in this case, it hinges on one vote. Of the residents, if one person was to change their mind, I dare say council would have to reconsider. But at this stage, it's got 60% support, and yeah, I think the officer recommendation should prevail. So I commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Stockman? Any other councillors? Councillor Payne?
I have been approached, as have most councillors, about the impost of the cost in the special charge scheme, and have been agonising over this. And unfortunately, having heard the council officer recommendation, I don't think we have much choice but to support the recommendation. It's consistent with our own policies, and while it makes a huge cost impost in the rural roads in a way that it may not in the urban areas, that is the system we've got. These are the decisions we have to make. And there are schemes by which people can pay off the cost of this over some period of time. This is not one hard lump sum charge. But it does show just how difficult it can be with a large section of road and a small group of landowners who are impacted by this. So, yes, I feel that we, in order to be consistent with our own policies, many of which we're going to talk about tonight, prioritisation of roads, etc., and special charge schemes, that we have to support this.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Any other councillors? Councillor Duffy?
Thank you. I am often conflicted with the special charges scheme because I do feel the pinch that's being imposed on people. I've received communication from a number of residents putting forward their objections to this. Some of the information that I've received also talks about the collective nature of the users for this area. This road goes down to the Yarra. It's a public area, it's a public resource, and there is council reserve that people use. Council is contributing around $57,000 for, as we've heard, with some of the cost of this road. But the majority of people that go and use the river are not going to be actually contributing in a great way. They will be contributing through rates and through, the various ways that rates are distributed, but a lot goes on to the into the pockets of the people that are actually living along this road. So I do want to let the community know that I have read all of the emails that have come to me, and so I have been considering that as well. Also listening to what the council officers have said with this policy and the way that it works. We do have a policy at the moment, whilst it might seem inequitable and unfair, it does have history with it, and it has processes in place to be able to enable people to pay off the amounts if this does go ahead in increments. There is also, at this stage, it's just putting the scheme forward for declaration. So for those people who are wanting to have a think of, do we really want this, don't we want it, it's at this stage, if this goes ahead, that we as council will be able to hear those extra voices. Everybody is able to, within 28 days, provide written letters to council to indicate their position on this, why they see the need to object or not, and that would certainly go into furthering whatever the next decision is that would come from council. So yes, I'd just like to say that I'm very aware of the significant costs that are being imposed on people at a time when we've got a cost of living crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? Councillor Eyre?
Thank you. Yes, I acknowledge all that's been said before me, so I won't go back over those, but to also acknowledge that I too have received emails from residents, and I hear the points that are raised, and I understand, the cost, the change to the road and the feel, so the neighbourhood character and the reason that they moved into the road for the starting point. I hear all of those points, particularly around cost as well. But as been said, we have this policy in place, and we do need to follow our policies, which makes it a bit tricky when we sort of feel a little bit on the fence in some way. And as others have said, there is also other processes that can be followed within 28 days. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. I'll speak on this one as well. Look, I do have problems with this, and it makes it very difficult to make a decision. There's been a 60-40 vote here. 60% of properties on the road have voted in favour of the scheme. It's very difficult to get past that. I really do empathise with the residents, or the four residents, or four properties who, many of whom are here tonight, and welcome, who have voted not to seal, and I recognise that they, for a large part, have the biggest frontages and the biggest amount to pay. So there's this inequity here around how the scheme is funded. But at the end of the day, we do have the issue of VCAT, and if we go against our own policy here and fail to declare a scheme when 60% of residents have voted in favour, then it can be taken to VCAT and become something that we have to fight in VCAT, which will be very messy, and something we will quite likely lose in VCAT, and the scheme will go ahead anyway. So what tonight is about is not actually declaring the scheme and going ahead with it. It's not a final decision. There's a 29-day window during which residents may object or make submissions, and once that window is over, if we do receive objections or submissions, then there will be further consideration by council before the final scheme is actually declared. So this isn't a final decision. This just kickstarts the process, really, and gets the ball rolling on the process. And it is something that we need to do, given we had that 60% vote, because if we don't, then we could be forced to through VCAT. And that's not a path that any of us want to go down. So I will support the recommendation tonight, but I fully expect that at one of our Planning and Consultation Committee meetings in the not too distant future, we will have a lot of input from a lot of residents who live on the road, where we will be able to get more information, and there'll be another decision to make down the track once those residents have been able to have their say. And so with that, I will put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. I'll just give us a chance to let Councillor Egan back in while we move on to the next item. And the next item is the Eltham Bowling Club bank loan guarantor, and I will look for a motion.
Happy to
Councillor
move.
Payne.
Thank you, Mayor Ramchan. Happy to move the motion that Council 1 acts as bank loan guarantor for the Eltham Bowling Club, the EBC, to enable the club to replace the grass green surface with a synthetic playing surface. 2, provides a letter confirming Council's intention to guarantee a loan to EBC for $100,000 over a 5-year term. 3, affixes the common seal of Nillumbik Shire Council to the necessary loan guarantee documentation. And 4, notes that any potential future redraw request must be endorsed through a council resolution.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Eyre? Councillor Payne.
Yes, this is a very good news story. The Eltham Bowling Club wishes to replace its grass green surface with a synthetic playing surface. The club was founded in the late 70s. It's got 140 members. It's a non-for-profit organisation, and it's turned its fortunes around. So this is a very good news story for a local sporting club that has managed to actually turn its fortunes around and will be able to improve its facilities. So yes, I wish them all the best. I was there for a trivia night on Saturday night, and I'm very pleased that the club is performing so well.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Eyre?
Yes, thank you. I also support this, that we support the bank loan guarantor for them. I think there's a few reasons for that. One is it's their core business. So if they can't actually play there or they can't increase their membership, that's really tricky because players will go elsewhere. So I'm happy to support the club activities, and it also fosters good physical health and also mental health by getting out there and being active, but also socialising as well. So I'm in full support of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? Councillor Perkins.
Look, this is fantastic. Eltham Bowling Club are truly leading the way, I think, amongst all sporting clubs in Nillumbik in terms of, recognising the lease conditions. That is that they're responsible for upgrade of their surface, or making those improvements that the club needs. They've been obviously been saving for quite a while with $254,000 in the bank. They're committing much of that, it looks like, and looking for $100,000 loan from council. So they're doing quite well. As Councillor Payne said, they have turned their fortunes around. I think they're doing a fantastic job. They haven't taken the path that most sporting clubs do, which is to work very hard on lobbying councillors and trying to put themselves at the head of the list. They've obviously put their heads down and bottoms up and working very, very hard to fund their own activities. So I think there are other sporting groups and clubs around the Shire that should look at Eltham Bowling Club and take the lead from them, because I think it's a fantastic example of a really, really strong community sports club. 140 members, founded in the 1970s. They're helping themselves, and good luck to them. And I hope that more sporting clubs, whether they be tennis, hockey, soccer, take the lead and look at helping to fund their own improvements. And council will certainly come to the table and contribute where we can. So in this case, it's guaranteeing a $100,000 bank loan. And importantly, I think there are some strings attached. It's what the bowling club has to do, which other sporting clubs refuse to do, to council, is basically declare their income and provide quarterly loan statements from the bank to council to demonstrate the loan repayments are being made as scheduled. Provide annual cash flow reports and projections to ensure council is informed of any possible adverse financial projections, and provide business plan forecasting memberships, programs and services. So it's those types of conditions that have put some sporting clubs off from pursuing a bank loan and seeking council to guarantee that bank loan. Unfortunately, there are other clubs that we know that just aren't in the financial position to be able to meet the required repayments. So officers doing due diligence haven't made a recommendation to council that we support guaranteeing a bank loan in those cases. So there's a few caveats on whether or not council will guarantee a bank loan, but clearly Eltham Bowling Club have shown that they can can repay that loan, do it over, I think it's a 10-year period or 5-year period. I think it's 5 years. And as the other councillors said, a really great
Could
news
wrap
story.
up there,
Congratulations
Councillor
to them.
Perkins. Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. The next item is the Unsealed Roads Improvement Prioritisation Policy, and I will look for a motion. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. So the motion I will move as per the papers rather than reading everything out, but I will note that there is an additional point 5, which includes a reference to the policy to consideration of neighbourhood character when sealing roads.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. I'll look for a seconder.
Happy to second.
Councillor Egan. Councillor Duffy?
We have, in Nillumbik, we have lots of roads, we have lots of unsealed roads and we have sealed roads. I think one of the things that's important about this prioritisation is having a way for council to work out what is the order, which roads do we fund first. And so this policy provides a matrix as to how we will go about that and puts the CEO in charge of being able to look at the prioritisation. Some of the points that we're looking at here are, the road function, the community safety, the community benefit, the environment and economy and financial implications. On page 10 of the papers, there's a road function. So it's looking at, is it a collector road? Is it near bus route? What are the traffic volumes? What sort of through route usage is there? In putting through this prioritisation policy, I would like to consider and think of one of the roads like Railway Parade in Eltham. The residents in that area for a long time have been complaining about it being a rat run. It's very dusty. It's right on the Diamond Creek Trail. And again, as we've heard tonight, there's an impost when the community is asked to fund these roads. And, is it fair for those that live on the roads to pay for the road when there are multiple users that use it? And for Railway Parade, as an example, there are people that want that to be bitumened, but they don't have the funds to be able to do that. But then also in doing that, in bitumening the road, are we creating more rat running for people to use it as a way of getting away from Main Road and the traffic congestion there? So all of these things have complexities, but having some way of being able to prioritise what we do and how we do it sets up a system that is fairer than having no system at all. So that's why I'm supportive of this prioritisation, and I hope that there is some wriggle room that officers are able to look at when they're considering the roads and the matrix to ensure that it does work for community.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Egan?
Yes, just a few things to add to that. When I first got on council, it was really a free-for-all with councillors with unsealed roads in their wards because we had a certain bucket of money, and it was really those who knew what they were doing at the time, previous councillors like Councillor Perkins. So you had to learn how to navigate your way around that particular system. So I'm really welcoming this, considering that the majority of these unsealed roads are in my and the Mayor's wards. There's still unsealed roads, yes, in the rest of Eltham, but having this criteria that has specific values placed on it will actually sort of weed out those roads where it's really only going to benefit a couple of properties, as opposed to one of our long roads where you've got 50 properties. And what the danger is to the community, because the community safety, apart from what sort of a road it is, whether it's a feeder or a main road, I think the community safety is one of the main issues here. I just wish we could get something like this with Vic Road or DOT or whatever their latest name is, in terms of how they look after some of our roads. So I'm totally for this, and I think it'll make it a lot easier and actually prioritise the sealing of the roads where they're actually needed, not sort of which councillor has the highest number of votes at the time. So I'm really glad to see this happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Perkins?
Yes, thank you. And if we were listening to the councillor who gets the highest number of votes every time, it would be me. And I know that doesn't happen. So I'm not quite sure what Councillor Egan is alluding to. Oh, good. Okay. 63.3%, I think, of the primary vote last time. But anyway, I'll stay on track. As we know, this policy hopefully will stop what has happened in the past, and that's the squeaky wheel getting the oil. So it's not about the greatest number of petitions or the greatest number of letters or the greatest number of emails or the greatest number of approaches we've had from people to seal their road. It's applying a criteria that's fair right across the Shire. I think it's a great policy. The criteria looks at areas such as road function, community safety, community benefit, environment and economy, and financial implications. The appendix in the policy lays it all out very well. Most of the unsealed roads, as Councillor Egan stated, are in the rural parts of the Shire, but there are some in the urban parts, and that's largely my ward is urban, and I was very, very keen to have that .5 included, so I'm glad that's got into the motion. And it's really about using our own neighbourhood character strategy that Council adopted only late last year, and that really talks about the residential areas, the townships and the urban areas, that we've gone through a heap of community consultation, done a lot of work to develop a neighbourhood character strategy, and I think it's really important that our policies, where we're potentially, could detrimentally impact that amenity and that character strategy, that we need to reference it in our own policies. So it's really giving due attention to neighbourhood character in both the urban and rural parts of the Shire. But the urban parts, we do have a strategy. So it's a late end misere, but it is very important for the urban parts of the Shire that we just don't want to seal a road and not consider the impact on the neighbourhood character in that area, because sealing a road can, depending on how it's done, can have horrible detrimental effects to the local character. Particularly in the past, it has been rural parts of the Shire generally get a spray seal with spoon drains. And I generally support that. There have been times when curb and channel has to be put in parts of the rural parts of the Shire, which hasn't gone down well, but it's an engineering solution. So, typically I wouldn't want to see rollover curb or curb and channel in the rural parts of the Shire, because that is detrimenting neighbourhood character a lot more than it needs to. Looking at the areas and applying the right solution to every problem, this policy very much supports. So I'm very supportive of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Any other councillors? I'll speak to this one as well. I've been pushing for a policy like this for a long time. In all the time I've been on council since 2020, I've seen roads sitting on this list where we've got a bucket of about 400,000 each financial year to seal some roads, and these are the roads we're going to do. And I'd say, why are the roads there? And apparently they met some sort of priority criteria, but no one's ever been able to actually show me what the criteria are. And here are the criteria that we'll be going off from now on. I think this is a huge improvement to the way that we make decisions transparently and openly as a council, because everybody can see what the criteria are. And really this is the way that council should operate. We set the strategy. This is the strategy here, the criteria, and it's the officers who aren't or who are in no way influenced by voters and trying to do the best for a road with a lot of voters and a lot of, as Councillor Perkins said, squeaky wheels and people making the loudest noise. It's officers making fair, sound decisions based on criteria that have been set by council. And so there couldn't be anything fairer. And it takes us out of the decisions as to which roads are sealed. Obviously, we still get the final decision when we set the budget, but this is the policy that will be used to decide what roads are recommended in that budget. And I think any councillor would be foolish to try to change that when that list has been put together so fairly. And so, yes, I'm very pleased to see this policy being approved tonight. The next step is for anybody who wants their road to be sealed, get in touch with council and tell us why you think your road meets those criteria. We will take into account what residents have to say. So, you know, our team will start now assessing all unsealed roads across the Shire against these criteria. And if you think there's something we may miss, or if you think there's something we have missed, please let us know, because the team have committed to actually taking that into account and listening to residents when they assess roads against those criteria. And I already have a growing list of people who've contacted me about getting their road sealed, who I'll be passing on those details so that they can inform us of why they think they meet the criteria. And so with that, I will put that one to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. The next item is the special rate and special charge policy guidelines. And I will look for a motion. Councillor Payne.
Happy to move the motion as per the papers.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Egan. Councillor Payne.
This almost feels like a continuation of the previous item in a way. This is the policy about the special charge schemes, the special rates, and updating the policy. Council has had the policy reviewed with the assistance of local government consultants and come up with a policy that I believe that we need to implement and have been implementing this evening. So I would recommend that we vote for the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Egan? Any other councillors? Councillor Perkins.
Just quickly, as a result of briefings and input from councillors, I'm happy that we did get in Appendix 3 under infrastructure design standards a reference to neighbourhood character, where it says the design standards for infrastructure improvements generally undertaken as a special charge scheme will be mindful of neighbourhood character while providing a suitable solution to the issues of access, safety, drainage, bank erosion and dust that an unsealed road generates. So, you know, up until recently, neighbourhood character wasn't highlighted. It now is, and I think it's very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Any other councillors? I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. The next item is the endorsement of motions for the Municipal Association of Victoria State Council 23 August 2024, and I will look for a motion. Councillor Perkins.
Thank you. I move that Council resolves to adopt the following 3 motions for formal submission to the Municipal Association of Victoria State Council meeting to be held on 23rd of August 2024. 1, that the State Government provides a dedicated ongoing funding commitment to support Green Wedge councils in their management and enforcement responsibilities. 2, that the State Government implements measures that will enhance road safety on rural road networks by empowering local governments with the ability to reduce the default speed limit on rural roads. 3, that the State Government provides funding to increase bus infrastructure and provide better connectivity to townships and existing rail infrastructure.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Egan. Councillor Perkins.
Yeah, thank you. So the next, State Council of MAV, I'm the MAV delegate for Nillumbik. I'll be moving those motions. I do support them. Nothing new on the first one, really. Council's been calling for increased and dedicated or ongoing any sort of funding commitment from state government to support Green Wedge councils. We're one of 12 in this state. Worth a try. You know, we keep trying. That's our job. The advocacy role there. The second one, implement measures that will allow council to reduce the default speed limit on rural roads. Again, it's a long and arduous process to be able to reduce speed limits. Council would like to generally reduce speed limits on rural roads more than it currently can. And particularly the issue of unsealed dirt roads, hard to maintain, with our maintained graded, become even in the short term, sometimes more slippery depending on the weather. So unsealed roads, rural roads, typically are hazardous. And I think generally our traffic engineers would like to reduce speed limits, but it's very, very hard to get Vic Roads approval to do that. And the third one is that state government provides funding to increase bus infrastructure and provide better connectivity to townships and existing rail infrastructure. So that's, you know, right across the Shire. There's, if you go from south to north of the Shire, the infrastructure that supports people moving around on public transport decreases. It's probably at its peak in Eltham, dare I say it, and then as you move further north, it diminishes greatly. You go up to Hurstbridge where the train line stops, and that's about it. It's withered away to nothing. I think Diamond Creek's got about half the public transport options of Eltham, and Hurstbridge would have the same train services, but less bus connectivity. So look, I support the motion. Certainly take it to the MOV State Conference, and we'll do our best. That's all we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Egan?
Yeah, just to point out that these motions still have to be endorsed by the MAV Council to be able to go any further. We've had to change the dates because of the caretaker period, because of the election this year, and it's been brought forward, so they're still in a draft form, as the council's only convened twice a year. So hopefully they will get up. These motions have to sort of cover off what could happen in most councils across Victoria. So it's not something that we can put in that's just specific to Nillumbik. It has to work statewide. So they're the only things I wanted to add what Councillor Perkins said. So make sure you win, Peter.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Any other councillors? Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. I would just like to add to a comment about the motion about buses. What I think is particularly important here is upgrading the infrastructure so that we're looking at bus shelters and, sure footing at bus stops that don't have bus shelters. With our climate action plan, with the cost of fuel, with trying to encourage people to catch public transport, and particularly for our kids that catch buses to and from school, if we're able to make it a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more enjoyable, there will be more use of this. So one of the things that's made me incredibly sad is that, along Wattle Tree Road, there are children who have gone completely through their high school years who've asked me for assistance in getting bus stops for them. I was thinking that this would be an easy thing for council and the state government to do, but it proves to be very difficult. And in the same way, bus stops.
You can't get a bus either.
Yeah, well, they can get the buses. The buses are going there, but, to catch a bus is difficult and sometimes dangerous. So on Wattle Tree Road, there are bus stops that are actually in big gutters of eroded embankments on the side of the road. There's also Aqueduct Road. I've had elderly people from the Shire contact me saying that they'd like to be able to catch the bus, but it's dangerous even just to stand there, and it's very uneven up for their foot. With footing, and when you're elderly, it would be nice to be able to have somewhere to sit. So I do hope that there is a willingness for these to be adopted, and that there is a pot of gold that can come through at the end of the rainbow. I know that money is not easy to come by at the moment, but it is all about prioritisation as well. And so I'm hoping that we are able to look at the bus routes that we have and the bus stops that we have, so that where there are a lot of high school kids catching buses, we can make it a little bit more comfortable for them rather than standing in the rain or standing in the sun, that we actually can provide something to make it worth their while in choosing that way of getting to school rather than driving or being driven or otherwise.
I'll swap your bus stop for a bus route.
Thank you, Councillor
We've got the
Egan.
bus stops and no buses.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. Just to follow on from all that's been said is to actually make note that St Andrews and surrounds community on the move have been doing a lot of work in petitioning and speaking with councillors and MPs and Department of Transport to look to get a bus in the rural areas of Nillumbik as well. And they have a survey and a petition that is out. I'm not sure if they've closed yet, but would certainly, this continues the conversation that's going on with MAV. And I realised too, when both Councillor Perkins and Egan were speaking about MAV, when we take these motions to MAV council. Council is actually made up of the 79 councils, or those councils that are actually members of the MAV. So it's not just a board of, say, 12 or 15 people. That could be, I don't know, could be 200 councillors voting on these motions. So they have to be worded in a way that we get support from everybody, or at least get it passed. So that's why they might seem a bit more high level, and that's important for that reason. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? I'll speak to this one as well. And Councillor Eyre actually took the words out of my mouth in relation to St Andrews. We've had mention of Eltham out to Diamond Creek, out to Hurstbridge. Well, at least they have a train. St Andrews has nothing, as do many rural areas in our shire. Smiths Gully, Christmas Hills, the list goes on. Strathewen, Arthurs Creek, no public transport, none. And so that causes a lot of problems for a lot of people in the community. There's the issue of ageing in place, and as people get older, there's there are issues around driving, particularly at night, particularly on dark rural roads. And I've heard from a lot of residents that it would help a lot if they had public transport. We look at the young, and particularly with our new youth hub going in Diamond Creek, I actually wonder how young people in certain areas of the Shire are going to be able to get there, because it'll be quite easy for anyone living along the Hurstbridge train line. But I look at people in St Andrews and other parts of my ward, Arthurs Creek, yep. Even for me, where I live in North Warrandyte, if I was a young person wanting to get to the youth hub, I would have to take a bus that comes maximum once every hour, and sometimes it just doesn't show up. All the way to 578, you know it, Councillor Regan, for the 578 or the 579. And sometimes you don't know which bus is which. They go on two different roads, but the timetable doesn't tell you which one's going. And so you've got to sort of guess. And you might be standing in the wrong spot and it might not come at all. And so that'll get you to Eltham Station. Then you take a train across to the youth hub. This is the real importance of actually having good public transport across our shire. There are so many people who would use it if it was there. And so that's one really important side of these. But just to touch on the others there as well, looking at road safety on rural road networks and the ability to reduce default speed limits. I know that's something that some councillors have worked particularly hard on. And after a 4-year term and another 2 years, I believe Councillor Egan was able to drop the speed limit on Church Road. But 6 years. And so that's how long it can take, when sometimes the decision is very much straightforward and common sense. And so allowing local councils to be part of that decision, I think, would be really valuable. And the other one there is around funding for Green Wedge councils and support to help us manage the Green Wedge, look after our precious Green Wedge, and undertake our enforcement responsibilities to the best of our ability, because really we are the lungs of Melbourne. We support the whole of Melbourne, and we do that on a very small rate base, and we have a small rate base because we are the Green Wedge Shire with a lot of rural areas. And so we really could do with that funding support from the state government. So that's where these three motions are coming from, and I look forward to putting them up at MAV and hopefully getting a good outcome. So with that, I will put this one to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. The next item is the informal meetings of councillors' records for the 25th of June 2024, and I will look for a motion. Councillor Eyre. You're on mute, Councillor Eyre.
Always one time that's going to happen. That council, in accordance with item 20 of council's governance rule, meeting procedures, receives the informal meetings of councillors' records in attachment 1 for the meetings held.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Duffy. Councillor Eyre? Councillor Duffy? Any other councillors?
Nothing to say.
I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. We do have one notice of motion. There are no delegates' reports and no supplementary or urgent business. And so that notice of motion there is listed for confidential. Councillor Duffy, I'll invite you to redeclare your conflict of interest.
Yes, thank you. I will step out of the room as I have a conflict of interest with this item.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. All right, I will look for a motion. Councillor
Move that
Payne?
we go into confidential.
Yes, is that the motion?
We have to
So
move to
we
go
are
into
moving-
confidential first,
You-
point of
you've-
order.
So you can move whether or not we go into confidential. So it's the motion.
Yes. So I'd like to move that the item, thank you, that council resolves to move the notice of motion, councillor expenses, legal advice support listed in item 16, confidential reports to item 13. Notices of motion to be discussed and dealt with in the open meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Stockman. Councillor Payne.
Yes, this is a notice of motion that has already been brought to council. We have already made a decision about this, but it's come back, and I believe that we can debate this in an open session without going into confidential. Some councillors will say that it goes against a council officer recommendation. Those same councillors went against council officer recommendations last year as regards the prayer. So it would seem that councillors can pick and choose as they like. So I would basically say that we can debate this carefully in open debate.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Stockman. Any other councillors? Councillor Perkins.
So I draw the mover and the seconder to what's been listed in the agenda. I'll read it out just so everyone's aware of the officer advice. This item is confidential because it is internal arbitration information, being information specified in section 145 pursuant to paragraph 1 of the definition of confidential information under section 3(1) of the Local Government Act 2020. This ground is applied because it is information that, if publicly released at the time, is likely to be inappropriately detrimental to council or any person, natural or corporate. So that's what's been listed in the agenda. That's the advice, that's the officer advice. The mover and the seconder are choosing to ignore and totally disregard this advice. Well, do so at your own peril, councillors. You know, you've got legal advice from our internal legal counsel, and there's been other legal advice that's been sought and provided. You're taking the leadership of the mayor again in trying to, you know, play tricks with council. The motion has not been listed in the agenda. If you want to be open and transparent, this is not the way to do it. What has been listed in the agenda is that information that says you are not to make this item not confidential. You're not to have to air it in the public. You know, the mover's motion, seconded by Councillor Stockman, flies in the direct face of the legal advice provided by council officers. Now, you're playing games. We know that both of you don't want to come back on council. You're trying to somehow expose those people who are supporting Natalie Duffy. Well, you know, play that game. I'm not going to support your motion, but I reckon this is going to turn bad for you guys. It's going to turn bad for the mayor. You've taken poor advice from the mayor. The mayor is not taking advice from officers. We've heard that in the briefing. We know what the mayor's position on this is, because it wouldn't be an issue at all had the mayor have not taken the action that he did and bring the arbitration process against Councillor Duffy. This has been a shameful exercise, the whole process. And you're just getting political because you're not trying to stand for council. You think you can somehow embarrass myself or Councillor Egan or any other councillor that stands up for Natalie Duffy, that stands up for Natalie Duffy against the bullying and harassment that has been issued against her, dragged virtually through the courts by the mayor. It's not right. I won't support this motion, but, you know, if you guys have the numbers again to do what you've done for the last 2 years under the leadership of this mayor, I don't think it's going to play out well. So I oppose this motion vigorously. I support the recommendation of the council officers. They've done the right thing here. They've done the right process right through. What we have not had in the last 2 years is decent leadership. It's been poor leadership, but we'll see what happens. Good luck with your motion.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Egan?
Thank you. I'd like to concur with everything Peter Perkins said. I find it extraordinary that all three people that want to go into open are the three that aren't running for council again next term. You can draw your own conclusions for that. I also find it amazing, I actually don't know why we've had staff in the room tonight, because it seems to be none of their advice is being taken on board at all. So why do we have the staff here? I'll leave that up to the rest of you. I think Peter Perkins summed it up perfectly, but if it goes into open, you'll hear a bit more from me.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Well, I'll speak on that one as well before Councillor Payne's right of reply. Look, Councillor Eyre, sorry.
Thank you. I cannot support the motion. I feel that we need to stay confidential given the topic that's in front of us, and I feel that it's important for council's integrity to actually have it held in confidential. I don't think that having this conversation out in the open does anyone, even Councillor Duffy, any favours at all. I feel that it should be kept confidential. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Well, look, I don't appreciate the threats being issued. They sound very ominous. I don't think there's much substance behind them, but there we go. Look, the officer's advice there is around the actual potential content of the debate. The content of the motion itself is not confidential at all. It's the content of the debate that means this needs to be confidential. This is the second time we've seen this. It's been debated before in confidential. Councillors have had that opportunity to have this debate. And so I am of the opinion that we don't need to have the same debate again. We do have KPIs under the Local Government Act where we should try and hold as many items as possible in the open, outside of confidential. And I think this is an example of a place where we really don't actually have to go into confidential, because we've already had the debate. There's no need to have the debate again. And there's nothing necessarily confidential about the motion itself. And so anybody who actually really wants to put this into confidential clearly has something to hide. And I don't really know what that is, but there we go. But yes, I am of the opinion that it should not be held in confidential. It looks like we will likely have a 3-3 split, which makes it difficult to decide there what to do with my casting vote, although I have heard the message that it should be used for the status quo, whatever that may be. I'll have to think about what the status quo is. With that, I'll hand over to Councillor Payne for a right of reply.
Thank you. I don't think it's coincidence that the loudest objection to this comes from a councillor who advised other councillors to avoid contentious decisions in election years because they may not be returned. And it seems like the desperation to stay on council overrides our job, which is to accept responsibility. And I believe we have to suck it up. And I think that was your advice originally. Yeah. So on that basis, I think we can move to the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. All right, well, I'll put that one to the vote then. Those in favour? Those against? Which leaves me with my casting vote. I do think I should use it for whatever the status quo may be. So while I very much would like to see this held in open, I can see that the status quo must be confidential, so I will stick with that. And I'll vote against the motion with the casting vote, reluctantly. All right, I'll look for another motion. Councillor Egan.
I'd like to move that we close the meeting in open and go into confidential.
I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Perkins, Councillor Egan.
No, nothing to say.
Councillor Perkins.
It's been said.
I'd just like to congratulate Councillor Egan on her motion. I think it's well thought out. There's good advice supporting your motion, Councillor Egan. I'm happy that we got to this point. I'm happy that the Mayor did not use the casting vote in ways that he has previously. and this is a matter of confidential business, as advised by officers, as accepted by council. Yeah, try not to be controversial, Councillor Payne. You don't want to get back on council, but if you want to air your dirty laundry, which you clearly do, in open forum, there's lots of stuff that I didn't like what happened through that whole process, but you know, I have not been able to say anything about the whole process because it's been a confidential item. If that was to change, I would be saying a whole lot, but I'm not. I'm supporting the motion. Councillor Egan, you've done a good job as you continue to. God bless.
Thank you, my son.
What an interesting way to sum that up. I'll look for any other councillors who wish to speak. All right, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? And with the casting vote, I'll support that motion, and we'll move into confidential. Thank you to all of those in attendance, and we'll shut off the live stream.